The Deep Space Research Station, Horizon, floated silently at the edge of the solar system, its metal hull gleaming under the distant starlight. Inside the station's observation deck, Commander James Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring out into the vast darkness of space. The station had been humanity's proud achievement, their first permanent presence at the edge of their solar system. For 3 years, they had worked alongside alien allies, learning about the galaxy and its countless species, but nothing had prepared them for what appeared on their sensors that morning. "Commander, you need to see this," called out Tom, the station's sensor operator. His voice carried an unusual edge of excitement. Something big just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Miller walked over to the main console, his boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. The sensor display showed a massive object, easily 3 times the size of their station. "What are we looking at?" Miller asked, leaning closer to the screen. It's like nothing we've seen before, sir. The ship appears to be made of some sort of crystalline material. It's not matching any known designs in our database." The station's alarm suddenly blared to life, its red warning lights casting eerie shadows across the deck. Miller's alien advisors burst into the room, their faces showing clear signs of distress. The tallest of them, Ambassador Blue, named for his distinctive coloring, spoke first. "Commander Miller, you must arm your weapons immediately. That ship, it belongs to a Shadowhunter." Miller had heard stories about Shadowhunters during his diplomatic briefings. They were supposed to be the galaxy's apex predators, a species so dangerous that most spacefaring races refuse to even speak their name. "Are you certain?" Miller asked, keeping his voice steady despite the growing tension in the room. "The crystal ship design is unmistakable," Blue replied, his voice trembling. "They are death itself, Commander. In all recorded history, no one has ever survived a close encounter with their kind." Miller watched as the mysterious ship drew closer to the station. Its surface caught the light from distant stars, creating rainbow-like reflections that danced across its crystalline hull. Despite its fearsome reputation, Miller couldn't help but admire its beauty. "Sir," Tom called out again, "we're receiving a transmission from the vessel." The room fell silent. Even the alien advisors seemed to hold their breath. "Put it through," Miller ordered. The transmission wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of words or threats, they heard something that sounded like a mix between a whale's song and the wind rushing through a canyon. But underneath the strange sounds, Miller detected something else: pain. "The Shadowhunter is injured," Miller said suddenly, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "How could you possibly know that?" Blue demanded. "Listen to the harmonics in the transmission. It's not a threat. It's a distress signal." The alien advisors huddled together, whispering frantically among themselves. Miller knew what they were thinking. Standard protocol for dealing with dangerous species was clear: deny aid and contact the Coalition fleet immediately. But Miller had joined the space program for a reason. He believed in humanity's potential to bridge gaps between species, to understand the unknown rather than fear it. "Tom, prepare the main docking bay," Miller ordered. "Commander, you can't be serious," Blue exclaimed. "This creature could kill everyone on this station." Miller turned to face his alien advisors, his expression firm but calm. "We're a research station, and our mission is to learn. If this being needs help, we're going to provide it." "This is madness," Blue protested. "Your species is too young to understand the danger. The Shadowhunters are the most lethal predators in known space." "Maybe," Miller replied, walking toward the exit. "Or maybe we've all been too afraid to try understanding them." As Miller headed toward the docking bay, he could hear the aliens continuing to protest behind him. But his mind was made up. Humanity had come to space not just to explore, but to make a difference. And sometimes, making the difference meant taking risks that others wouldn't. The crystal ship was now visible through the station's windows, its massive form casting long shadows across the docking bay. As the docking procedures began, Miller took a deep breath. He was about to either make first contact with one of the galaxy's most feared species, or make a terrible mistake that would be remembered for generations. Either way, history was about to be made. The docking bay doors opened with a low hiss, revealing the massive crystalline ship now securely attached to the station. Miller stood at the entrance, wearing only his standard station uniform. He had refused the combat armor his security team had tried to force on him. "At least take a weapon, sir," pleaded Jack, his head of security, holding out a pulse rifle. Miller shook his head. "If this creature is as dangerous as everyone says, a weapon won't make any difference. Besides, I'm not here to fight." The inner airlock of the crystal ship began to open, releasing a soft blue mist that quickly dissipated. Miller could hear his alien advisors watching from the safety of the control room, their worried whispers carrying through his comm unit. Then he saw it. The Shadowhunter was enormous, standing nearly 3 meters tall. Its body seemed to shift between solid and transparent, like smoke caught in crystal. Multiple pairs of eyes glowed with an inner light, and patterns of bioluminescence pulsed across its surface. But what caught Miller's attention was the way it moved, carefully, favoring its right side. "You're hurt," Miller said softly, taking a step forward. The creature's eyes focused on him, and for a moment, the entire docking bay seemed to hold its breath. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Shadowhunter lowered itself to Miller's eye level. A sound emerged from it, similar to the transmission they had received earlier. Miller noticed something else now. A deep gash in the creature's crystalline body, leaking a phosphorescent fluid. The injury looked serious. "Commander," Blue's voice crackled through the comm. "Step back immediately. It's trying to lure you closer." Miller ignored the warning. Instead, he pointed to the medical bay visible through the docking bay windows. "We can help you," he said clearly, making a gesture toward the injury. The Shadowhunter's bioluminescent patterns shifted, creating complex swirling designs. Miller felt a strange sensation in his mind, like someone gently knocking on a door. "It's attempting telepathic contact." Blue's voice was nearly hysterical now. "Commander, your mind will be destroyed." But when the contact came, it wasn't an attack. Instead, Miller received a series of impressions: pursuit, danger, pain, and most surprisingly, gratitude. "You're welcome," Miller responded, smiling slightly. "I'm going to call you Rex, if that's okay. Easier than trying to pronounce whatever your actual name might be." The creature's patterns shifted again, this time in what Miller could have sworn was amusement. "Sir," Tom's voice came through the comm, "we're picking up multiple ships entering the system. They're broadcasting coalition identification signals." Miller looked at Rex, whose patterns had shifted to darker colors. "They're the ones who hurt you, aren't they?" Rex's response came as another series of mental impressions: hunters, hatred, extinction. The story became clear. Rex's species was being systematically hunted down. "Commander," Blue's voice was urgent now, "the coalition ships are demanding we hand over the Shadowhunter. They say it's a matter of galactic security." Miller watched as Rex's patterns dulled, a sign he now recognized as resignation. The creature had expected this, had probably experienced betrayal many times before. "Tell them we're conducting sensitive scientific research and can't be disturbed," Miller said firmly. "But Commander." "That's an order, Ambassador." Miller turned back to Rex. "Let's get you to medical. I'm no expert in crystalline biology, but we'll figure something out." As Miller led Rex toward the medical bay, he could feel the shocked stares of his crew. Nobody had ever treated a Shadowhunter as anything other than a monster to be feared. Yet here was their commander, walking beside one, as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. In the medical bay, Miller watched as Rex carefully settled onto the reinforced examination table. The creature's patterns had shifted to warmer colors, and Miller felt a gentle wave of trust through their newfound mental connection. "Don't worry," Miller said, beginning to gather medical supplies. "On Earth, we have a saying: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We'll figure this out together. Outside the station, coalition ships took up attack positions. Inside, a human and the galaxy's most feared predator began forming a bond that would change the course of interstellar history. Sometimes, Miller thought, the bravest thing wasn't fighting monsters. It was being willing to understand them. 3 days had passed since Rex arrived at the Horizon Station. Miller sat in his office, reviewing the data they had gathered while treating the Shadowhunters' injuries. The coalition ships still lurked at the edge of the system, but so far, they had respected the station's research status. A gentle mental touch alerted Miller to Rex's presence before the door chimed. He smiled, still amazed at how quickly he had adapted to telepathic communication. "Come in," he called out. Rex entered, ducking slightly to fit through the human-sized doorway. The creature's wound had mostly healed, leaving a faint iridescent scar in the crystalline body. The Shadowhunter's patterns were bright today, showing what Miller had learned to recognize as curiosity. "Feeling better?" Miller asked, though he could already sense the answer through their mental link. Instead of responding directly, Rex projected a series of images into Miller's mind. The commander sat up straighter as he witnessed scenes from the Shadowhunters' past. Vast crystal cities floating in space, filled with beings like Rex. But then came darker images. Coalition warships, weapons firing, crystal cities shattering. "They're hunting your entire species," Miller said quietly. "But why?" Rex's patterns shifted to deep blues and purples. More images filled Miller's mind. Different predator species from across the galaxy, all being systematically eliminated. The coalition, it seemed, had decided that predator species were too dangerous to allow in their vision of a civilized galaxy. "That's why you're all so territorial," Miller realized. "You're not naturally violent. You're fighting for survival." A warm feeling of approval flowed through their mental link. Rex moved closer to Miller's desk, patterns swirling with increasing speed. This time, the mental images showed Shadowhunters protecting younger species, guiding them, helping them develop space travel. "You were guardians," Miller breathed, "before the coalition turned everyone against you." The door chimed again, and Ambassador Blue entered, freezing when he saw Rex so close to Miller. Despite days of evidence that the Shadowhunter meant no harm, most of the station's alien residents still couldn't overcome their fear. "See, Commander," Blue stammered. "The coalition representatives are demanding a response. They say they have proof that the Shadowhunters were planning to attack peaceful worlds." Rex's patterns flashed with anger, and Miller felt a surge of frustration through their link. More images appeared in his mind. Coalition ships attacking Shadowhunter vessels that were merely defending their territory, followed by propaganda broadcasts painting the defenders as bloodthirsty aggressors. "They're lying," Miller said firmly. "The coalition started this war, not the Shadowhunters." Blue's eyes widened. "How can you be so sure?" "Because Rex showed me the truth." Miller stood up, walking over to stand beside the Shadowhunter. "Their species isn't naturally aggressive. They were the galaxy's protectors before the coalition decided that predator species were too dangerous to exist. But their hunting instincts," Blue protested weakly, "are no different from humanity's own predatory nature," Miller finished. "We learn to channel our instincts, to use them for protection rather than destruction. The Shadowhunters did the same thing, long before we even left Earth." Rex's patterns shifted to a gentle gold, and Miller felt a new series of images. Humans and Shadowhunters working together, combining their strengths, exploring the galaxy as allies rather than enemies. "That's why you came here, isn't it?" Miller asked, looking up at Rex. "You didn't choose our station by accident. You'd been watching humanity, seeing how we balanced our predatory instincts with our capacity for cooperation." The Shadowhunters' patterns formed complex geometric shapes, their equivalent of a smile, Miller had learned. "Commander," Blue said hesitantly, "if what you're saying is true, the coalition has been lying to everyone for generations." "Yes," Miller agreed, "and it's time for that to change." He turned to Rex. "Will you help us show the galaxy the truth about your people?" Rex's response came as a burst of determined energy through their mental link, accompanied by patterns of bright, fierce colors. The Shadowhunter was ready to fight not with weapons, but with truth. Miller smiled. Sometimes the greatest battles weren't won with force, but with understanding. And humanity, walking the line between predator and protector, might be uniquely suited to help the galaxy understand that difference. The Horizon Station's main conference room was tense. Coalition representatives sat on one side of the table, their faces set in stern expressions. Miller and Ambassador Blue sat on the other side, with Rex standing behind them, pattern swirling with calm determination. "This is your final warning, Commander Miller," said Admiral Pike of the Coalition, his gray uniform pristine and his voice cold. "Hand over the Shadowhunter, or we will be forced to take more direct action." Miller remained calm, feeling Rex's reassuring presence through their mental link. "Admiral, with all due respect, you have no authority over an Earth research station. Rex is here under our protection." "Protection?" Pike's laugh was harsh. "You're protecting a monster. Their kind has destroyed entire worlds." Rex's patterns flickered with indignation, and Miller felt a gentle push in his mind. He nodded, giving the Shadowhunter permission to share memories with everyone in the room. Suddenly, all present saw the truth. Coalition ships firing first, peaceful Shadowhunter vessels defending themselves, crystal cities falling as their inhabitants tried to protect younger species under their care. The images were clear, undeniable, and devastating to the Coalition's claims. Pike's face had turned pale. These are tricks, telepathic deceptions." "You know they're not," Miller replied quietly. "The Shadowhunters were the galaxy's guardians before your Coalition decided to eliminate all predator species. How many civilizations have you destroyed in your crusade for peace?" Before Pike could respond, the station's alert system blared to life. "Commander," Tom's voice came through the comm. "Multiple Coalition warships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're charging weapons." Miller stood up slowly, his eyes locked on Pike. "So this meeting was just a distraction while your fleet got into position. We cannot allow the Shadowhunter to spread its lies." Pike snarled, dropping all pretense of diplomacy. "If you won't hand it over, we'll destroy this entire station." Rex's patterns turned to deep crimson, but Miller felt no aggression through their link, only protective determination. The Shadowhunter moved forward, its crystalline form seeming to gather light around it. "That would be a serious mistake, Admiral," Miller warned. "An attack on this station would be an act of war against Earth." Pike smiled coldly. "Earth is one planet. The Coalition spans thousands of worlds. Who you think would win that war, Commander?" Suddenly, new alerts sounded throughout the station. Tom's voice was excited this time. "Sir, multiple ships just appeared in system. They're Earth vessels. The whole Third Fleet just arrived." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "I sent a message to Earth Command the moment Rex arrived, Admiral. They'd been waiting just out of sensor range, watching how this played out." Pike's face twisted with rage. "You dare to threaten the Coalition?" "No, Admiral. We're preventing the Coalition from committing another genocide." Miller's voice was firm. "Earth has granted asylum to Rex and any other Shadowhunters seeking protection. We've seen the truth, and we won't stand by while you hunt them to extinction." Blue, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, finally spoke up. "My people will stand with Earth as well. We've been blind to the Coalition's lies for too long." Pike stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "This isn't over, Commander. The Coalition won't forget this betrayal." "Good," Miller replied, "because we want you to remember that humanity will always stand against genocide, no matter how you try to justify it." As Pike and his representatives stormed out, Miller felt waves of gratitude flowing from Rex. The Shadowhunter's patterns had shifted to colors Miller had never seen before. Hope, perhaps. "Commander," Tom's voice came through again. The Coalition ships are pulling back. Earth fleet is taking up defensive positions around the station. Miller nodded, then turned to Rex. I meant what I said. Earth will protect your people. He smiled slightly. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect my first diplomatic crisis to involve defending the galaxy's most feared predator species. Rex's patterns formed what Miller now knew was laughter, and through their link came a clear message. Sometimes the most important change begins with one simple act of trust. Looking out the conference room window at the Earth ships now protecting the station, Miller knew that the real crisis was just beginning. But for the first time in generations, the Shadowhunters weren't facing it alone. In the weeks following the confrontation with the Coalition, the Horizon Station had become a hub of activity. Miller sat in the newly expanded communication center, surrounded by screens showing transmissions from across the galaxy. Each one told the same story. More Shadowhunters emerging from hiding, seeking Earth's protection. Rex stood beside him, patterns shifting in complex ways as they sorted through the incoming data. Through their mental link, Miller felt the Shadowhunters' mix of hope and concern. Look at this, Miller said, pointing to one of the screens. Another Coalition weapons cache discovered, specifically designed to target crystalline life forms. They'd been planning this for decades. Rex's patterns darkened, and Miller received a series of images showing similar weapons being used against other predator species, not just Shadowhunters, but dozens of civilizations that had been systematically wiped out. Commander, called out Tom from his station, you need to see this. Our deep space probes just found something at the coordinates Rex provided. The main screen lit up with images of a massive debris field. Even shattered, the crystalline structures were beautiful. It had been a Shadowhunter colony, destroyed by Coalition forces. But among the ruins, something caught Miller's eye. Are those stasis pods? Rex's patterns flashed with excitement. More images flowed through their link. Emergency protocols, hidden survivors, hope preserved in crystal. They're alive in there, Miller breathed. Your people managed to save some of the colonies by putting them in stasis. Ambassador Blue, who had become a strong ally since seeing the truth, stepped forward. The Coalition told us all Shadowhunter colonies were weapons facilities, but these are clearly civilian shelters. A new transmission interrupted them. It was Admiral Pike, his face twisted with anger on the screen. Commander Miller, we know you found the colony ruins. Those are military installations, and any attempt to access them will be considered an act of war. Miller felt Rex's frustration pulse through their link. The Shadowhunter shared a new set of memories, not of weapons or war, but of schools, hospitals, art galleries, all preserved in crystal, all destroyed by Coalition forces. They were civilian cities, Miller said firmly. And the only reason you're threatening us now is because you don't want us to wake up witnesses to your genocide. Pike's face reddened. You have no idea what forces you're playing with, Commander. The predator species were a threat to galactic peace. No, Miller countered. They were a threat to the Coalition's control. A reminder that strength and wisdom can coexist. That's why you wanted them destroyed. Suddenly, Rex's patterns blazed with brilliant light. Through their link, Miller received not just images but pure knowledge. The location of hundreds of hidden stasis pods across the galaxy, each containing preserved predator species, the Coalition had failed to completely destroy. By the stars, Blue whispered, understanding dawning on his face. The Shadowhunters weren't just protecting themselves. They were saving everyone they could. Pike's expression turned dangerous. Those pods must remain sealed. The Coalition will not allow. Miller cut the transmission. He turned to Rex, whose patterns now showed fierce determination. You've been waiting for this, Miller said, not just for allies, but for someone who could help you restore what was lost. Rex's response came as a symphony of mental images, humans and Shadowhunters working together, awakening the survivors, rebuilding not just one species but many, creating a galaxy where predator and prey species could coexist as they once had. Commander, Tom called out, "Earth Command is requesting an update. They want to know our next move." Miller looked at Rex, then at Blue, seeing determination in both of them. "Tell them we've discovered multiple humanitarian crisis sites requiring immediate evacuation, and inform all Earth ships in the sector that we're launching rescue operations." Rex's patterns shifted to colors of dawn, the promise of a new beginning. Through their link, Miller felt not just gratitude, but a sense of rightness. Humanity, with its own predatory past and its capacity for compassion, was uniquely suited to help heal the galaxy's ancient wounds. "The Coalition thought they could bury the truth," Miller said quietly. "But some things refuse to stay buried, especially when they're preserved in crystal." Outside the station's windows, Earth ships began moving into position, preparing to help right a wrong that had persisted for far too long. The rescue operation moved faster than anyone had expected. Within a month, Earth ships had recovered hundreds of stasis pods from hidden locations across the galaxy. The Horizon Station, once a simple research outpost, had become the center of a massive humanitarian effort. Miller watched from the observation deck as another transport ship docked, its hold carefully cradling crystalline stasis pods. Rex stood beside him, patterns glowing with barely contained excitement. "How many different species in this batch?" Miller asked, though he could feel the answer forming in their mental link. Rex's patterns shifted into complex mathematical sequences. Through their connection, Miller saw images of 3 distinct predator species, one with iridescent scales, another with gravity-manipulating abilities, and a third that could phase through solid matter. And the Coalition tried to convince everyone these were just mindless killers, Miller muttered, shaking his head. The station's medical bay had been transformed into a revival center. As Miller and Rex entered, they saw several newly awakened beings from different species being carefully tended to by human doctors and their Shadowhunter assistants. "Commander," called Dr. West, the head physician. "You need to see this. The beings we revived today. They're not just survivors. They were scientists, artists, teachers." Rex's patterns sparkled with confirmation. More memories flowed through their link. Vast libraries of knowledge, centuries of scientific advancement, all preserved within the crystal structures of the stasis pods. They weren't just trying to survive, Miller realized. They were preserving their civilization's entire cultural heritage. A commotion at the door drew their attention. Ambassador Blue rushed in, his usual composure shaken. "Commander, more alien representatives are requesting permission to dock. Not coalition ships, independent worlds. They're offering aid." Miller felt Rex's surprise and joy ripple through their connection. On the main screen, they could see dozens of ships approaching the station, each carrying supplies and medical personnel. "The truth is spreading," Miller said with a smile. "Every survivor we revive has a story to tell. The Coalition can't keep up their lies anymore." One of the newly awakened beings, a creature with scales that shifted color like oil on water, approached them. It communicated through a series of gentle psychic pulses that Rex translated for Miller. "They're thanking us," Miller explained to the others. Their people had slept for 3 centuries, waiting for someone brave enough to stand against the Coalition. Dr. West looked up from her medical scanner. "Commander, these beings, their technology, their understanding of sciences we've barely begun to grasp. Working together, we could advance Earth's development by centuries." Rex's patterns formed what Miller now recognized as their equivalent of a proud smile. Through their link came images of human ships equipped with crystal technology, exploring deeper into space than ever before possible. "That's what the Coalition feared, isn't it?" Miller asked Rex. "Not that predator species would destroy civilization, but that together we might create something beyond their control." The station shuddered slightly as more ships docked. On the monitors, Miller could see vessels from dozens of worlds, each bringing their own expertise and resources to help with the revival efforts. "Commander," called Tom over the comm, "you've got to see the latest transmissions. Coalition worlds are starting to question their leadership. There are protests demanding answers about the predator species purge. Rex's patterns shifted to show complex waves of light, their expression of vindication. The Shadowhunter shared a vision of the future, a galaxy where all species could contribute their unique strengths, where being a predator didn't mean being feared. "It's already happening," Miller said, gesturing to the medical bay where humans worked alongside newly awakened beings from across the galaxy. "Every species here has something to teach and something to learn." The scaled being communicated again, this time with stronger psychic pulses that filled the room with a sense of determination and hope. "They're right," Miller said, translating for the others. "This isn't just about saving lives anymore. We're rebuilding the galaxy as it should have been all along." Rex's patterns blazed with approval, and through their link, Miller felt a new emotion: pride. Not just in what they had accomplished, but in what humanity had proven itself to be, not just allies, but bridges between worlds that had forgotten how to trust. Outside the station, more ships arrived every hour, each one carrying help, hope, and the promise of a future where difference didn't mean division. 1 year after Rex's arrival at Horizon Station, Miller stood on the observation deck of Earth's new Interspecies Command Center. The massive structure floated in orbit around Earth, its crystal and metal construction a testament to the partnership between humans and the formerly persecuted species. Rex, now Earth's official ambassador for predator species, stood beside him. Their patterns shimmered with pride as they watched ships from across the galaxy move through the busy space lanes below. "Hard to believe it all started with one injured Shadowhunter seeking help," Miller said, smiling at the memory. Through their mental link, Rex shared images of the past year's achievements. Hundreds of rescued species now thriving on Earth and its colonies, new technologies revolutionizing space travel, and most importantly, the slowly healing rifts between predator and non-predator species. The door slid open, and Ambassador Blue entered, looking more relaxed than Miller had ever seen him. "The Coalition's new council has just approved the Predator Species Protection Act," he announced. "All hunting operations are officially terminated." Rex's patterns erupted in a dazzling display of joy. Around them, the crystal walls of the command center seemed to pulse with shared celebration. "Commander," Tom's voice came through the comm, "the first joint exploration fleet is ready for launch." Miller turned to the viewport, where dozens of ships waited in formation. Each vessel represented a different species technology, all working in harmony. Human crews served alongside Shadowhunters, scaled beings controlled gravity drives, and phase shifters managed the navigation systems. "This is what they feared," Miller said quietly. "Not that we would destroy each other, but that together we would become something extraordinary." Rex shared a new series of images through their link. Distant stars, unexplored galaxies, and the countless discoveries waiting to be made by their combined civilizations. A group of young human cadets walked past, chatting excitedly with their alien instructors. The sight of humans learning directly from previously feared predator species had become wonderfully common. The latest survey shows over 300 worlds have requested to join the new Interspecies Alliance, Blue reported, checking his datapad. Even some former Coalition strongholds are applying. Miller felt Rex's satisfaction pulse through their connection. The Shadowhunter shared memories of their people's original purpose, not as destroyers, but as guardians of emerging civilizations. Now that role was being restored, with humanity as eager partners. "Launch Control reports all ships ready," Tom announced. "They're waiting for your signal, Commander." Miller stepped forward, Rex at his side. Through the viewport, they could see Earth below, beautiful and blue, now home to the greatest gathering of species in known space. "You know," Miller said to Rex, "when I took command of Horizon Station, I never imagined I'd end up helping restart galactic civilization." Rex's patterns formed complex geometric shapes, their version of laughter. Through their link came waves of affection and respect for humanity's role in changing the galaxy's future. "All ships, this is Commander Miller," He spoke into the calm. You carry with you the hopes and dreams of every species that has fought for this day. Show the galaxy what we can achieve together. The combined fleet began to move, their crystal-enhanced drives creating ribbons of light against the darkness of space. Each ship carried mixed crews of predator and non-predator species, all working together to explore the unknown. The coalition tried to create peace through elimination. Blue observed, but true peace comes from understanding. Rex's patterns shifted to deep, rich colors as they shared one final vision through their link. Countless worlds yet to be discovered, species yet to be met, and a future where strength and wisdom walked hand in hand. That's our real mission now, Miller said, watching the fleet disappear into faster-than-light travel. Not just to explore space, but to show the galaxy a better way forward. The command center hummed with activity as reports came in from across known space. More stasis pods being discovered, more species awakening, more worlds opening their doors to a new era of cooperation. Miller looked at Rex, remembering that first moment in Horizon's docking bay when he chose trust over fear. One small choice that had changed everything. Above them, the stars beckoned, no longer divided between predator and prey, no longer haunted by ancient fears. The galaxy was entering a new dawn, and humanity had helped light the way. Sometimes, Miller thought, the greatest adventures began with a simple act of friendship.